I think we're live. Yes. Oh my gosh, everybody. I'm Mary Mancini, chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party, and we're Facebooking live today because we wanted to talk about a few things. We wanted to talk about voter protection. We wanted to talk about what some of our Democratic Party leaders are seeing across the state in terms of voter intimidation and vandalism and intimidation to Democrats across the state. We want to talk a little bit about some of the incidences that we received during early voting on our Voter Protection Hotline. Voter Protection Director Kendra Lee is going to talk about the voter protection effort, how you can help, how if you see something, say something, and how to report it. And then we'll take questions from anybody who has any. So wanted to first throw it over to Chairwoman Christy Cowan. Chair Cowan is the chair of the Hamlin County Democratic Party in Upper East Tennessee in Hamlin County. So go ahead.
Okay,
there you are. Hey.
I think I'm ready.
You are. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on.
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you all for taking the time to inform us about all of these things that are happening. So in Hamlin County, we have had quite a bit of vandalism in terms of signs being defaced. We've had a lot of signs being stolen, whether it be the smaller yard signs or the 4x8 signs. We've had signs taken down from 20-foot poles in fields. People really taking the time to vandalize things like that. And then last week, in fact, last Thursday, the 22nd of October, I was at headquarters volunteering in the evening. It was close to 6 p.m. and a pickup truck ran into our front yard and ran over our permanent business sign. And it was, unsettling to say the least. The person ran over some other yard signs that were there too, but just took out our Hamlin County Democratic Party sign in front of our business. I have spoken with a detective the next day, which was last Friday, and I have not spoken with him again since then. So it's been a week since I've spoken to him, but it's an ongoing case. He told me that it was an open case. All of these vandalism charges, every time someone told us that a sign has been stolen from their yard or we have heard of any act of vandalism, we have filed a police report. Edie Webb, who I don't think is on the call, but she and Pam Hall have done a really good job of logging those, especially when people call in to headquarters and say, look, my sign's been stolen, and they would have them come back in and get another one. But some of the members of the Democrats in Hamlin County purchased billboards, through Lamar and Elevation, professional companies, and those have been vandalized, if you can imagine. One was closer to the ground, and I think that they figured out they could get to it more quickly. But we've had billboards vandalized, things stolen, and then I still can't believe someone drove in our front yard, to be honest. And it was in broad daylight.
In a truck.
In a pickup truck. Yep.
Yeah. And so the response from law enforcement has been that they're taking these cases seriously.
Well, so in Wednesday evening's paper, our Citizen Tribune, the local paper here, there was an article. There had been a press conference with the Morristown Police Department. Chief Overholt had come out and said that, this kind of vandalism can, lead to, a fine, and really tried to make a statement about it, I think. So yeah, I mean, we've had some law enforcement say, come out and actually say, please stop this. And there's the signs. You can see the before and after. It makes me really sad. Probably at the end of the day, that's my main emotion. Anger and fear, to a certain extent, but just sadness that someone would take it upon themselves to do this, and that they're really going out of their way to do this.
So thank you for telling us about that. And this is just Absolutely. The tip of the iceberg. Every year signs get stolen, and there have been cases where people have gotten prosecuted for theft, and that's good. But this year seems to be particularly egregious and things, sort of emotions running really high. So the most important thing is, of course, for everybody to be safe. But the second thing is to take these seriously and do what you're doing up there and report the cases. So thank you for that. We are also going to hear from Regina Nash. Regina is the chair of the Lauderdale County Democratic Party in West Tennessee. Regina, you with us?
Yes, Mary, I'm here. We also have had a time here in Lauderdale County, not only Lauderdale County, Dyer County, Crockett County, what's the other county? Several counties in District 8. Signs have been vandalized and stolen. The signs here in Lauderdale County, we had a Biden-Harris sign up at the Election Commission, like the really nice one with the photo on it and everything. It was vandalized 3 times. Then we had one on the highway, main highway, Highway 51. It was vandalized twice. And then we've had some yard signs that have been destroyed as well. At the Election Commission, when it initially happened, they have a camera there. And the camera was not able to pick up the person, driver's license, tag number, anything. But you could clearly see the man getting out the truck, going over, kicking the sign in. The interesting thing about it is that Andrew Bond Johnson is running for state representative here. So Andrew's sign and Biden's sign are side by side. They would always tear up the Biden sign and leave Andrew's sign alone. So we take that as a win. What we did was we called and had the billboard put up. And the billboard is right by the Election Commission here in Lauderdale County. And it's a beautiful thing. Police reports have been filed. The police in the city of Ripley has been extremely helpful. And hopefully there will be some arrests done towards that. One thing that we did was just put people on blast. I mean, our county is heavy Republican, and we ran an ad in the paper. Chris Hurd is our state representative. Lauderdale County is his home county. And we just called it out, like no GOP has said anything about the vandalism of the Democratic Party signs. And that speaks volume as well. So now we've got the billboard up. Our other big sign, Dyer County has billboards up now. Crockett County just put up billboards on the Highway 412. They literally took the sign out of the wood frame. Just unbelievable. And so now they had an anonymous donor that paid for them to have the big billboard put up. So we're just in the trenches of things. And then not only that, this weekend, which is Halloween weekend, tomorrow, they're having a Trump parade in Lauderdale County. I grew up in this little town. I've just never seen this level of disrespect, viciousness in my life in a political season. It's just a whole new season in these local areas and everywhere. And it's sad.
It's really sad. Thank you, Regina, so much for telling us about your experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about what people can do, but what you are doing is, and what the people in that area, Congressional District 8 and West Tennessee, in terms of putting the people who perpetrate these things on blast, right? Shining a light on it.
Absolutely.
It's the only way. Now, what we're going to talk about a little later with Kendra is, what can be done legally. And what can be done about this kind of intimidation, especially when people are standing in line to vote, what can and can't be done. And so, but again, shining a light is the best disinfectant on these kinds of things. And thank you again for being here with us and for all you do and for telling your story. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We're going to stay in West Tennessee, and we're going to go to Thomas Jefferson, chairman of the Henderson County Democratic Party. Chairman Jefferson, your name always puts a smile on my face.
Well, most people just laugh when they hear the name. Anyway, But it deal in hand, following the other two terms, I concur pretty much what they have been saying. The only difference is they actually burned down the big Biden sign with the pictures on it. And a little backstory on that particular sign, it is right across the street within about 100 feet of the ballot box at the election commission. What makes that spot so unique, there was a Trump sign right beside it. And I can't give you the person's name because they don't want to be named because they are afraid right now. It was the father's son. The father is a Trump supporter and the son is a Biden supporter. The father told the son that, he knew he was supporting Biden. And if he wanted to put up a larger sign in the same spot next to the Trump sign, then that would be unique. The day we put it up on a Sunday, and it was like a Christmas parade through that parking lot for about 7 days. And then one night, and we caught all this on camera. Some gentleman came in the yard, poured gasoline or diesel fuel or whatever, or some kind of accelerant on it, and set it on fire. It took him about 10, 15 minutes to get it to burn. And so the crazy thing about it, the father got upset because he was telling the son that he couldn't believe Trump supporters were that mean. He just didn't believe all the stories that he saw on TV. So that's kind of the backdrop of this. So to make a long story short, the dad got upset, got mad, and took down the Trump sign. And he came to a Democrat rally that we were having in Lexington last weekend. So I think we might have a convert. You can't guarantee anything. Somebody going to polling, bowling booth, but he said he wasn't going to vote Republican. So we can only take his word for it. But we had signs, in the 7th congressional district. We don't have signs burned almost in there. Not burned, but taken down in every county. Humphrey County, Montgomery County, Perry County had burnt signs. So we had a tremendous amount. Now, we did report it to the police department. That's how we got the tape from the election commission to review it. I had an interview with WBBJ, with the Channel 7 out of Jackson, to put a little light on it. It was a pretty good segment. We had one of the county sheriffs, we had one of the county mayors, and myself that was all three interviewed, talking about the signs being torn down and burned. So we shed a lot of light on it. I'm putting up signs tonight. We made an agreement with the sheriff to put them up where cameras are. So we putting the big Biden signs up near cameras. I'm using pretty much all my signs up tonight because we want to see if anybody going to take them down or burn them. The cameras, we putting them near banks and a couple in the post office. So we got good visibility with cameras, and then we're going to see what happens. I've seen this happen before as a child, growing up in Fayette County. I've seen even worse. I've seen crosses burned in my dad's front yard. So it is frightening, but for me personally, it does not frighten me, doesn't scare me. All I do is just double down. Every time they take a sign up in Henderson County, I replace it. We get rumors about a large supporter, a big donor here that's actually paying bounty for the Biden signs. That's the reason why they're only taking up the Biden signs. So I don't know if the same thing the case in your county, but I know that's going on in Henderson County right now.
Well, thank you, Chairman Jefferson. And that really, burning takes it to a whole nother level, right? Stealing is one thing, vandalism is another, but.
Well, burning is a scare tactic. That's the reason why they burn the crosses, right? It's a situation where they burn crosses and they make calls. I don't get calls, and I publish my telephone number all in the newspaper. But they call my co-term. She get calls all the time, but they won't call me because I don't know why. But she get called all the time, threatening her life, and then some of my other executive club members, they get calls, but I never get calls, and I go out at night by myself and put up signs. So I've been in a threatful situation before, so I do know how to handle it. So I grow prepared. But my experience dealing with people like that, you just laugh about it. Because you never know who's working for whom. So everywhere I go, I laugh about they taking a sign. I said, if everyone they take down, I'm going to put up 2. Until I ran out last week almost. So I don't have more. But, I see that's just the way I handle it. I'm not going to let them make me quit, putting up signs. I put them up as long as I have them. We reported to the authorities. We got a game plan with the authorities. So we just see how it comes out in the next few days, next few nights.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. Well, thank you, first of all, for being, for being so vigilant, and I'm so glad to hear that law enforcement is helping you with this, and that you have a game plan with them. It is something that should be taken very seriously, and it is not in some parts of the state. And not only that, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but the party whose people who are responsible for this intimidation are silent. And, that's a big problem. And they should be helping to, make sure that this ends, this intimidation and this violence ends. And so, but they're not. And so that's a real problem too. But thank you, Chairman Jefferson, so much for that, for everything that you're doing, for doubling down, like you said. And just be safe as well.
Oh, no, we definitely are. Thank you.
So I want to again thank the chair of the Hamilton County Democratic Party, Christy Cowan, the chair of the Lauderdale County Democratic Party, Regina Nash, and the chair of the Henderson County Democratic Party, Thomas Jefferson, for joining us and telling us about your experiences. We're going to move now to talking about part of the other part of this, which is the system that the voter hotline that the Tennessee Democratic Party has set up has been getting reports to it all during early voting of some intimidation and at the polls. And I'm sure some of you have seen this, but I want to turn it over to Kendra Lee, our Voter Protection Director, to talk about some of the things that are being reported and where to the hotline. Kendra?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mary, for coordinating this effort for information, for people to be able to use this as a resource. Thank you so much to our county party leaders for being able to personally describe what's happening. And if you notice, it's going as far east and as far west. So this is really a statewide situation that we're dealing with. Unfortunately, the intimidation and the scare tactics are not limited to one county or one region, but we really just have a presidential administration with the Trump administration and with the GOP that are promoting, divisiveness. If they're not promoting it, they're ratifying the behavior by staying silent. And we have gotten most of our calls typically weren't even about things that were happening within the polling place with poll workers, other than permitting voters or permitting people to come in with Trump paraphernalia and not removing them, as opposed to wanting to remove people who had on apolitical things such as Black Lives Matter or I Can't Breathe, but then allowing people to come in with Trump masks or with Trump hats or with Trump shirts, and not being able to tell them that they're not permitted within that 100-foot marker to do such things. We've had pictures come in from all the way from Shelby County to Sumner County, from Giles County, from Anderson County. So these are issues, again, they aren't special to just one place that's happening. And we have to continue to be vigilant with reporting these things. As Mary mentioned, if you see something, say something. It gives us a lot more credibility to be able to take these issues to the election administrators, to be able to take this to the Secretary of State, to be able to, take this to law enforcement if there is theft or arson that's happening in your communities, to be able to say, these are things that are happening and we can show you. No one has to make up these stories. No one has to try to exaggerate what's happening. We can just have people call in to our hotline and report exactly what's happening. So leading up to Election Day, we have over 400 volunteers as poll watchers across the state who will be on the ground in your communities. And so if you see a poll worker, a poll watcher for the state party that is there, they will indicate that they are there. You'll see their credentials if they're on the inside, and if they're on the outside, they'll be able to communicate that with you within that 100-foot boundary on election day. And if there is an issue that you need to report, find them and make that report. And if you cannot find them, please utilize our hotline number. That is exactly what it is there for. The best resource are our voters. The best resource is our people that are on the ground letting us know, because I can only do my job as well as the information that's provided to us. And we're so grateful to be able to get this information so that we can call these things out when we see them happening. We have people that are sitting with Trump hats within the sign that says vote here. That's illegal. That's, that you can't do that within election law. You can't harass voters and yell at them. You can't stand in front of their cars while they're parked in handicapped parking spaces and refuse to move. And because that's an act of intimidation. You are trying to threaten them. You don't want them to feel comfortable in a space, and you don't want them to be there to be able to, voice their opinion and use their constitutional right to vote. And especially when it comes to being such as egregious as having things happen in Hendersonville with your own elected officials who are harassing voters as they come in to vote. I think that we had the most calls come from for the Hendersonville Church of Christ, where there is just constant badgering of voters. Voters are standing in line. They have their aldermen, their highest elected office, parading around, using a megaphone, yelling at voters, getting right within their faces beyond the 100-foot marker, and then being able to continue to use such classless behavior because of a technicality. And so what we would like to do for the call to action for all of our poll workers who are, who have signed up to do a job and make sure that it's done, we have to make sure that this is a fair and a free election without any barriers, without any impediments from anyone or anything. If your candidate of choice wins an election because they get more votes outright, it's fine. But if you have people who are trying to discourage others from voting, that's suppression. And that's no way to win an election. That's no way to be proud of winning an election. And so we just have to collectively come together as a community and call it out when we see it. I'm grateful to hear that law enforcement is being cooperative, taking these cases seriously, because it is something that we have to be able to put on notice that this behavior is unacceptable. And it is not okay to think because you disagree with someone as a candidate that you can go and commit crimes, that you can go and assault and batter and theft and arson and all of those things because of political differences. That's not how we do things, and that's not how things need to be done. So again, I just stress the importance of being able to call into our hotline. I don't know if we have the number, if it'll be available for us, for you all to see on the screen, but please, 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 on election day, be able to utilize that. This is our last chance. We've had amazing turnout across the state for early voting, and we want to be able to keep that momentum right into Tuesday. And we are going to make sure that voters are able to do that safely. When you show up to your polls, if there's any sign of intimidation, if there's any sign of cooperation with the poll workers, with those who are doing the intimidation, please report it. If you see anything that you feel is out of place, if you see anything that makes you uncomfortable, if you see something that you know doesn't feel right, but you aren't sure if it's illegal, report it anyways. The best thing that we can do is to be able to put these things on notice so that we can know, so they can know that we are there to hold them accountable for their wrongdoings. So I just encourage everyone to continue to keep up the good work so that we can continue to call this out and make sure that people can be able to vote safely.
Kendra, I have a question. I'm going to be a poll watcher. I know I can't wear a campaign shirt of any kind, but can I wear my Henderson County Democratic Party name tag inside of the polls as a poll watcher?
Not as a poll. Well, you're assigned as a poll watcher because of the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And so the only credentials you need are what you're going to be provided from the Election Commission. They don't want any type of indication of partisanship, even though you were appointed through the Democratic Party. So whatever credentials they provide to you, that's what you're allowed to wear within the polling place and within that 100-foot marker outside as well.
Now, I don't know why I did it illegally. Because I'm the 7th Congressional District Chair, I applied for some other counties as poll watchers too. I'm going to float that day. I'm going to float between 7 and 8 counties. Is that particularly illegal?
To float?
Yes, I won't be in Henderson County, Hardeman County, Chester County, all the way up, maybe even to Franklin County. I won't be floating from a lot of those polls. They told me.
No, as long as you have the proper credentials. So as long as they know that you have your credentials, then yes. So as long as you turned it in within the deadline, the deadline for the credentialing was noon today. So as long as you were able to submit that and you have your badge, they'll ask for it when you show up. You just show it to them, or they'll ask you for the paper and to sign in. So as long as you have the proper credentials, then you are permitted to go inside of the polling place, and you can still be able to, inquire about anything with the polling managers if there's something that's happening. So just making sure that you have the proper credentials as a poll watcher and an observer.
Kendra, can you explain a little bit about the poll watchers' roles in terms of them at the end of the day at 7:00 and they take the ballots back to the machines, back to the Election Commission? Can you just talk a little bit about the role of the poll watcher in that, the do's and don'ts and can'ts?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So as a poll watcher and as an observer, that's truly what it entails. You are permitted to observe the process of what's going on from the moment poll workers show up until the moment they pack up. Not saying that you can go in and touch things and interrupt them while they're doing their job, but when they show up and they're putting the machines together, you are allowed to see that. When they are doing their jobs and they're facilitating the elections, you are allowed to observe that as long as you aren't impeding on them doing their jobs, as long as you aren't interrupting the voter. And then once voting ends, you are entitled to see the results tape. And then you are entitled to be there until they put the machines back safely and making sure that they're locked up. That entire process of the election, poll watchers get to observe that. So if any moment while they're packing up and you're still there and they're looking at you like, what are you doing? They know by law that you are entitled to do that. There are very set poll watcher guidelines that each county has access to, and they are very well knowledgeable of what it is that you are allowed to do. And they know that as long as those poll workers are there, you get to be there as well.
That's interesting that you said that, because they have the resources to know what the poll watcher can and cannot do. It's very interesting because when I received it, I looked on the bottom and it was from summer of 2006, and I thought to myself, nothing changed. I mean, it was like 2006. This is 2020, so I'm going to assume that it's right, but. Myself, I'm like Thomas, I am going to be a poll watcher, and I'm going to be able to move around because, trust is a lot right now, and I've been able to at least identify 2 other people for Lauderdale County, and we would definitely be on your training Sunday, and Wonderful. We're just going to be like little sponges. We're just going to absorb everything that you have to say to us. And also, we have poll workers that's going to work outside for the Democratic Party, and we will have those hotline numbers for that. And thank you for that, getting the Tennessee Democratic Party, getting that set up, because I've already started getting phone calls from people. One lady faithfully voted, and she went to vote, and they told her that she couldn't vote because she had moved or something. She's like, no, I have my card. I have not moved. And they would not let her vote. And then, of course, she came home, she called somebody, and then somebody called me. And I was like, here's this 855 number. Call them. They're going to be able to help you. But we've had incidents in this little small town. We have had incidents already with people being turned away for voting.
Regina, thank you so much, because, and I just want to reiterate that point. There's a couple of things. One is never leave the polling location without voting. That person could have voted provisionally, and also filled out a report form if there is an incident at the polling location. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Kendra, but that has been a problem recently with people being purged and without reason or mistakenly, or whatever the reason is. But people who have voted inconsistently in election after election after election, and then they show up and they're not on the roll. So what should somebody do if that happens, besides call the hotline like Regina suggested?
So as you mentioned, on election day, as we all know, it's different from early voting, because early voting, you can vote at any early voting location, but for election day, you have to show up at your proper polling place. And so some of the times, the third party vendors that local election commissions use to put information into polling books sometimes doesn't match their databases. And so if you give them your name, if they don't have it exactly the way that it's supposed to be, then all of a sudden they can't find you. And so you have had people who have called in and like, I have not moved. My name has not changed. There is nothing about me that's different. And it's nothing that the voter has done incorrectly. It's about the way that the information is stored in the poll book. And that's just going to be on the fault of whoever loaded it. And so what you can do is have them call the central office, wherever that is in your county, to confirm it, to do a cross-reference of the information that they have on file, because they are going to have more accurate information there as opposed to what's in the poll book on election day at that moment. They can be able to, load something in incorrectly. There are just a lot of things that are up to user error, and they have to be able to confirm those things with the central office. And so the first step, if a voter is very sure that they are registered, they have voted, they stop what they're doing and call the central office to confirm it. They can take that voter to the side so they won't have any bottleneck with traffic. But if you know that you are entitled to vote, you should wait. And I say that because with the provisional ballot, we don't want people filling out provisional ballots if they're entitled to vote like everyone else. Mary is absolutely correct that we are all entitled to provisional ballots. There is never a voter who should walk away without voting in some capacity. At the end of the day, if they can't verify something on the spot, they give you a provisional and you're able to cure whatever it is with your main election commission, and then they'll figure out if you should be able to have your provisional counted, but it's not that you should be turned away at all. And so if they have issues that are finding you or locating your information, and if they, for some reason, they can't find it and they call and they can't find it as well, at the very least, you are entitled to a provisional ballot. They seal it, they mark it as provisional, and they take care of the necessary steps after that ballot leaves and it gets to them. And so there is no voter that should ever be turned away and not voting at all, because that is not the Tennessee election law. Every voter is entitled to a provisional ballot. Even if you aren't sure of your registration status, if you are like, well, I think I registered, but I'm not sure, fill out this provisional ballot, fill out your information, and they'll figure it out. If you are registered, it'll count. If you aren't registered, they won't count it, but you should not leave without voting.
Hey, Kendra, I have a question. The Democratic Election Commission people, I have never seen them helpful in the past. Are you guys having success with those people within the polling places when people go in to vote? I just haven't had any success in those. And then the second question, do I have to be outside of the 100-foot barrier to have a Democratic Party information vehicle set somewhere so people can
Yes.
get information? Okay.
So second question, I'll answer that one first, is yes. So once you get beyond that 100-foot marker, it should be clearly indicated where it is. If you have campaign signs, if you have something that's for a political affiliation, perfectly fine beyond that 100-foot marker. But once you get within that, and once you get within the polling place, you can't have any sort of political affiliations or candidates or anything that's on the ballot. Those things are not permissible, and they are defined as electioneering. So there is no electioneering that can happen within the polling place, and then in the perimeter of the outside within the 100-foot marker. But also to your first question, you typically aren't going to see your Democratic elected election commissioners at the polling places on election day.
No, I know, but some do. Some kind of float between the polling places looking for hiccups, if you will. But even if they don't, I just never seen them historically. And I worked with 2 separate counties, actually 3 separate counties in the state of Tennessee. And I just never seen those people being very effective. So that's the only reason why I was asked.
Okay.
So let me go ahead and address that, because it has to do sort of more with infrastructure. Yes. So the way the county election commissions are set up is you have 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats on each county. In each county election commission. Some are really great and some are not, to be perfectly honest, right? Some have been on there a long time and they're just not interested in changing things or monitoring things, for whatever reason. So it's uneven, to answer your question, Chairman Jefferson. It's uneven, but we have some excellent election commissioners in a lot of the counties that a lot of counties across the state. It can be uneven, just like with any other organization, right? It's just like with any other infrastructure. So you might want to keep an eye on that. You might want to keep an eye on when there is the next time that the state election commission appoints election commissioners. And then, try to talk to some people now that you think would be good to replace them.
Well, I replaced one, but the guy that was going to quit, he decided not to quit because he didn't want to be replaced with the guy that I was going to replace him with.
All right. Well, that's another conversation. That's a whole separate conversation.
And that's one of the guys.
Right.
I think he's a rhino. I think he's a Republican in name, but that's just
right.
Our assumption. But anyway, that's just something I want to clear, especially not in this election, but in future elections. I think I think the state party sometimes don't know the people or the lay of the land on certain things, and I think they have to have at least some input from the local.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we're going to wrap this up, but there's a couple of things I just wanted to make sure people know, which is the hotline number. Kendra got us a great hotline number, 1-855-4-VOTE-TN, 1-855-486 8386, and we've put that on a graphic as well as in the chat for people. If you have already voted early or by absentee, thank you so much. If you have not, you have the opportunity to cast your vote next Tuesday, November 3rd, for Democrats up and down the ticket in Tennessee, from school board to the President of the United States. So make your plan to vote today for next Tuesday. Like I said, early voting is up 40% from 2016. We have in Tennessee just made huge gains in voter turnout. So everybody that you know is voting. They know how important this is. So please join your friends and family and make your plan to vote. And that means, what time will you go? Will you go in the morning or after lunch or after work or get a break at work? How will you get to the polls? Who might you bring with you? Make sure that you have an acceptable ID, government issued ID, driver's license works perfectly. And save the Voter Protection Hotline number to your phone, 855-486-8386. This election will have long-standing consequences. Republicans know it, and they are using every voter intimidation tool in their toolbox. As Kendra mentioned, and as we have heard from our chairs across the state, reports of voter intimidation are pouring into the Voter Protection Hotline. And so we need your eyes and your ears. If you see something, say something. This election is going to come down to the wire, but we absolutely will not sit by and allow these intimidation tactics to run unchallenged and undermine the vote. So we did get one question, which is a good one. We'll take this question, though, just so we can do that. Emily, Kendra, it says, do we have any way of knowing if polling locations have actual Democrats and Republican parity in the poll workers? How does one identify a Democratic poll worker?
So typically you will not be able to recognize them. They won't be identifiable. There is supposed to be a 1-to-1 ratio of, for every one Democrat that you have working, there should be one Republican working alongside them. In theory, that is what it is. In practice, I don't know if that happens. There are just simply some counties that claim that there isn't enough of one party to be able to do it. I've seen it happen on both sides, where some counties say that they have an influx of Republicans, and so there's always going to be more. And then other counties are like, well, we have so many Democrats that we can't possibly match everyone up with the Republican. So I've seen it play on both sides. But what I will say is that each polling place has a poll manager. And if there is any question that you have about something, take your questions directly to that person. They are the head person in charge at your polling place. So any issue or any question or any incident that you would like to report, take it directly to the person at the top, and they should have the resource to be able to escalate anything that needs to be handled outside of that polling place.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you still can't get your situation or your issue handled, remember the Voter Protection Hotline number. It's 855-4-VOTE-TN, the number 4-VOTE-TN, the Voter Protection Hotline. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Kendra, thank you for all your hard work on voter protection. Emily Cupples, our communications director, thank you for all your hard work on getting this finally on on the air. We have a little technical difficulties. Chairman Jefferson, Chairwoman Nash, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate all your hard work out there in West Tennessee. And just, Tuesday's only a couple of days away, and I know we're going to have some great news on that day. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about the show at tndp.org/podcast. Follow us on Instagram at TENN Democratic Party and on Twitter at TNDP. This show is distributed by We Own This Town. And don't forget to check to make sure you're still registered to vote at sos.tn.gov. If you're not registered, you can go there and do that too. So do it.
And if you don't know, now you know.